Mark Dubowitz is the CEO of the nonpartisan think tank Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He is with us this hour from Washington. And Mark just came back from 3 weeks in Israel, meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister and others on Iran specifically. So it's good to have you with us.
Thanks, John, for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, so the Israelis were publicly thanking their allies on Monday, US, Britain, France, Jordan and others, all of them working together to neutralize this attack by Iran. Here's the Israeli Army's Chief of Staff. Listen to this.
Operation Iron Shield proved the strength of our ironclad cooperation. I want to thank all our international partners who stood up to Iran's aggression. Iran's attack has created new opportunities for cooperation in the Middle East.
Even from the Prime Minister's office, this tweet: Israel deeply appreciates the support of the United States, Britain, France and others in thwarting the Iranian attack against Israel. So how crucial was that support? What would have been the outcome here in terms of lives lost and infrastructure damage if that Allied action had not taken place?
Well, John, actually, most of the missiles and drones were actually shot down by the Israeli Air Force or intercepted by the Israeli air defense systems. That's not taking away anything from the United States or from the UK or France or any of our Arab allies who certainly played a useful role. But I think General Halevi, the IDF Chief of Staff, and Prime Minister Netanyahu are making this point of appreciation for diplomatic and political reasons, because I think they understand there's a real opportunity to build a regional coalition against the Iranians and for future attacks that can be thwarted internationally.
It also seems to show Israel has support amongst the international community, regardless of what's happening behind the scenes with relations between Washington and Jerusalem. Publicly and in a very public way, there is support there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think it's very important because obviously Israel's been under tremendous heat recently because of the war in Gaza. So I think it's important to refocus on the sort of head of the octopus, which is the supreme leader of Iran and the regime in Iran. And really underscore that Israel is not isolated, Israel is not alone, and Israel is part of a broad regional coalition. All of these countries understand the threat from Iran.
I want you to listen to Iran's foreign minister. He seemed to be trying a little spin here about what happened. Here he is.
Our advice to all the supporters of the Zionist regime is to appreciate the value of Iran's responsible and proportionate action instead of choosing inappropriate words about Iran.
Seems there's some unhappiness among Iran and its allies right now, but would you classify this attack by Iran a failure or a success?
No, I think it was a partial success. I mean, look, they fired over 350 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones with the explicit purpose of trying to kill Israelis. In that respect, it was a failure. Unfortunately, there's one young Israeli Bedouin Muslim girl, 7 years old, who suffered severe injuries. But I don't think that they achieved their goal of massive casualties. I do, however, think they've created a new normal. I mean, they've now fired these missiles and drones from Iranian territory. This is a direct attack against Israel. It's the first time in the 40 years that they've been attacking Israel that they didn't go through proxies, didn't go indirect, but went direct. And I think they want to create a new normal. They actually said it explicitly. The regime said, we will now attack Israel directly from Iranian soil with the full might of the Iranian regime. So in that respect, they created a new normal, and the response from the United States and other allies to Israel is stand down, don't de-escalate. I think that's music to the ears of the Iranian supreme leader.
Well, with that in mind, here is a short sort of sampling of what the allies, those allies which defended Israel, are now telling Israel. Listen to this.
What we want to see is de-escalation of the tensions. We don't want to see a wider war.
We are urging them as friends to think with head as well as heart, to be smart as well as tough.
Now is the time to defuse and de-escalate. Now is the time for maximum restraint.
Allies and friends, I should say. We don't know what Israel is planning, but a diplomatic response seems to be political suicide for Prime Minister Netanyahu. But how far is he willing to go and maybe risk alienating some of the countries which helped defend Israel?
Look, we have to remember, I mean, Israeli prime ministers, Menachem Begin defied Ronald Reagan to take out Saddam Hussein's nuclear reactor in '81, and Prime Minister Ehud Olmert defied George W. Bush and took out Syria's nuclear reactor. I think Israeli prime ministers understand that at the end of the day, their responsibility is to defend their country and their people, and when there are regimes that are going to use the worst kinds of weapons against their people, it's not good to be popular in the West. It's much better to be alive in the East.
Good point to finish on. Mark, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate your thoughts and your insights.
Thanks for having me, John.